Everything worth doing in life is hard. Marriage is hard, business is hard, your spiritual life is hard, your physical health is hard. Have a different mindset around hard. We have the ability to move the ball forward. We have the ability to do something. We're not stuck. Real estate agents, welcome back. It is 2024 and we're coming back with RMG Agent Podcast. This is our second episode to help you launch into your new year. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you in your career. And to find out more about what we do, to see our blog, or just to get any information or communicate with us, you can always go to rmgagentpodcast.com. Watch us on YouTube or any of the podcast mediums. We're there and ready to help you in this new year. So last episode, we talked about new year, new opportunities, and I just couldn't be more excited for all the new opportunities that are going to present themselves to us in our industry this year. And to help me jump into our next topic as we just continue down this road, marching into a productive and profitable new year, I have the one and only Jake Bartlett.
Hey guys, super jacked for 2024. This is the second episode of 2024. It will be our, 17th episode, 16th episode now. So really excited for the progress that we've made and the feedback that we've gotten and all of your comments. So just jumping into this episode, we're going to be going over burnout, dissolution, and green grass. So when you are thinking of these, what's your first thought?
Yeah, so when I started thinking just about preparing for this new year, it's really exciting to have the turn of a new year, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag though, because when we turn into a new year, there's this excitement of the roll of the clock, and at the same time, nothing actually changes, right? Mm-hmm. December 31st, you don't wake up and you're actually a different person. And the challenge, of course, is if 2023 was a really rough year, like you got roughed up in 2023, there's hope for the new year because there's a new date and all that's just great and fantastic. And sometimes there's a new mindset that comes along with it. But fundamentally, if you were dealing with really hard things last year, you actually have to start doing things to be able to shake the weight of that. And that's the reason for starting out this year with this as being one of our episodes.
Well, darn, that doesn't line up with what I was hoping the new 2024. I thought everything was going to get easy. Interest rates were going to go back to 5.
Yeah.
We were going to have, 6 million home sales this next year instead of like the 4 that we had last year. No, I agree with you. Just because it's the start of the new year, like if you were dealing with burnout, dissolution, any of those things, it's going to creep right back up even if you had a new mindset for like 2 weeks. Right.
That's exactly right. And so it's like, wow, that's not really encouraging. Yeah. Well, the situation that somebody might be going through might not be encouraging, but what is encouraging is the fact that you can do something about it. Right. And that's what we're here to do is when we talk about impact, empower, and encourage, that fundamentally means that we have the ability to move the ball forward. We have the ability to do something. We're not stuck. Right? So Jake, where I want to start the conversation is this idea that when I experience something, I need to actually stop and think for a second and figure out what is it that I am actually experiencing. Because if I'm dealing right now with burnout or disillusionment or anything like that, a fear, I'm in the mix of it, and the solutions for those type of internal problems, they don't come by just continuing to muscle forward. They come by us stopping and thinking. And so the first place when we want to say, hey, like last year was maybe a rough year, and this year we want to change it, is we have to ask ourselves the question, what is it that I actually am going through or went through, right? We have to identify it.
Yeah, so having some of those blocks, this is something that we talked about this last year. That was a really great idea of having thinking time blocks.
Right.
So that when some of these things creep up, like, hey, I already have something built in my calendar so that I have 30 minutes or an hour once a week to be able to say, I need to figure out what's going on. I'm going to think through this process so I can slow down to speed up.
When I start experiencing something that's maybe negative or painful or hard, it induces stress. And stress is something that a lot of people react to. They try to get away from. Maybe they take ashwagandha or something that is chemically helpful for stress, and that's natural. That's a good thing. But underlying stress is a pressure that needs to be examined. And so when it's pressure in your business or it's pressure in your life, this idea of stopping and thinking so that way you can identify or maybe diagnose it is more helpful than just trying to figure out how to deal with stress and make stress go away. Because stress is a lot of times an outcome of something, right? So the first place that we talked about starting with this is identifying the difference between burnout and depletion. So one of the areas when we experience stress that I hear people all the time is they say, I'm feeling burnt out, right? And one of the things I learned this last year was that there's a difference between burnout and depletion. And I think that this is a really good thing for us to stop and think about, because one of the ways of maybe articulating that is if I'm experiencing burnout, then it means that I am doing a lot of things in my job that I'm actually not good at and maybe are not the most important things. Right. So if I'm feeling burnout, the way to understand burnout is if I'm doing something for a prolonged period of time and then I go away for 2 weeks on a vacation and I come back, I'm not ready to take over the world again in that area. I'm still doing the wrong thing, something that's behaviorally really, really rough for me and not moving the needle forward in my business.
Yeah. So an example of this from me in my past, like I am a bit of a chameleon in my behavioral styles. I can force myself into a lot of different roles for periods of time. Like I have one role that is naturally behavioral right for me, but I can do most roles within an organization for 6 months. And I've had to do that when I've had to fire operations people, step into that. And I can do it for 6 months, but by the end of it, I am burnt out. Doesn't matter if I go to Hawaii and come back 2 weeks later, I'm still going to have those same burnt out feelings sitting in front of a computer and looking at, spreadsheets and contracts and all that stuff for 8 hours a day.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're feeling stress and you take a step back and say, what is it that I'm experiencing? And you use the word burnout, ask yourself, is this actually burnout? Because if it's burnout, there's not something that you can do to replenish that. You have to actually make a change, or you have to figure out what is the amount of time that I have before I can transition out of this. Because we end up in really hard seasons sometimes where burnout is happening and we don't see a path out of it. If you can look down the road and figure out when you can start making a change, or when this will start shedding itself, or if you hit your goals, now I can afford to do X, that's going to be the best path. But ultimately, if you identify it as true burnout, you've got to start making a plan for change, right? Yep. So that's different than depletion. Depletion is you are in a season right now where you're doing things that used to fire you up, that used to get you out of bed. You used to be like, yes, I can't wait to do this. I love serving clients. I love doing whatever that thing is. And now you wake up and you feel like, I hate everybody, right? I don't want to go to work. I don't want to see people. I want to just burn it all down. Okay. So if that's you, it may not be burnout. It's probably not burnout. It's actually depletion. Right, you have not kept up with the demands of your job when it comes to refilling the tank, right? So one of the things my wife told me is burnout is kind of like an engine running low on oil. It actually does permanent damage to the engine, whereas depletion is you ran out of gas. Yep. Right. So rolling into 2024, we have people who are in burnout mode. Right? But a lot of people are calling it burnout, but they actually are depleted. Last year just ran them into the ground, and they haven't chosen to do the things that they needed to keep up with filling their tank.
I would see this happening with agents that either had operations people that were helping them, or transaction coordinators, and the market constricted and they could no longer afford that. And now they're having to do the operations sides of things. And you need to be asking yourself, like, is it really burning me out? Like, I can't naturally do this, or do I need to recharge?
Right. And because people that are watching this, some of them are in a really hard spot. They're actually burning out and being depleted. Yeah. Right. Because that's the deal. Here's the thing is, you may not want to hear this, but it's your fault. Right. And I look at myself in the mirror whenever I experience this. It's actually not the market. It's not anybody else's fault. Even if I did a good job catching it, but I didn't quite catch it in time. If I had to do that over again 2 years from now, and I know better, then I would go back and I would start refilling and refueling. And so what happened to more than a few people this last year is because they had to go, full on into something that was going to cause burnout and full on into something that was going to deplete them, right? They had to work harder for the sales that they got. What has to happen in addition to that is you have to go all in on refueling, because if you don't, then these two things get even worse. And that's hard because it's like, this just got hard, this got hard, and guess what? Now you have to go do something else.
Yeah.
So that's hard to hear, but that's actually the deal.
It's like a three-way teeter-totter that you're trying to balance, right? Like if you go all in two, like you better go all in on all three, so you don't experience terrible life, right? Like terrible energy and all that stuff.
I saw a bunch of people do this well this last year, and that is, I would say that I traveled more this last year for training than I have in many years. And there was just a lot of people that rolled up their sleeves and went to more trainings and did more things. And that's a throwback all the way back to like 2006, 7, and 8, where the market slapped us so hard, a handful of people jumped on planes and jumped on phone calls to try to figure it out and try to get what they needed to be able to succeed. And that's ultimately what accomplishing your goals last year looked like and setting yourself up for success this year.
Yeah, I can second that as well. I went to more trainings this year than I did the last 2 years combined.
Yeah.
Right. So getting back in that learning mode and being around other people and recharging while you're also retooling.
Yes, absolutely.
What about disillusionment?
Yeah. So disillusionment it's a really, I would say it's a really scary place to find yourself. And a lot of people in our industry right now are finding themselves disillusioned. And you see it, you hear about people who are disillusioned in relationships, like maybe in a marriage relationship. People get disillusioned with their work. They get disillusioned with their physical fitness. And the marker of disillusionment is that black is not black and white is not white. Right and wrong start blending. And people find themselves in this place where they have a really hard time seeing how to make a good decision, and they allow their negative mindset to start having a seat at the table of their decision making. And so you see people and they're, the market was hard, and they started getting burnt out and they started getting depleted. And now the conversation isn't, what do I need to do to get back on top of this? It's, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Right. Hey, maybe I shouldn't be a leader. Hey, maybe I should go do something else. And for a small group of people, that's actually probably the right thing. Like, yeah, go do something else. Like, you're actually better fit for something else, because real estate sales is actually burnout to you. Right. So everything you're doing right now is burnout. Yeah. Okay. That's an okay outcome. But a lot of times you find people that are coming to that outcome because they're disillusioned, right? They've been trying things over and over and over, and it's not working. And maybe they're just ready to break through because they're new and they're pushing, or maybe they think they've been doing everything that they can, and they're just actually, like, if we're honest, it's like, no, you're actually not doing enough. You feel like you might be doing 2 times more than you've ever done, but it's not, you can do more and you need to do more, right?
I'm talking to quite a few agents that are in this specific spot, right? And it shows up a lot in the other guyism. Like, hey, I know this other guy is doing social media and they're getting a ton of business from it, right? And I have to remind them, going back to some of our other episodes, that, like, you're seeing their posts, but you're not seeing the 15 hours worth of work to do all those posts, right? Or the 15 hours worth of work to do the YouTube. Like, they chose a different hard than you did.
That's right.
You're not going to something else and having it be easy, right? Like, they chose the other hard.
That's right. There is, if you are not hitting your goals right now, there is nothing but hard ahead of you. And that can scare you, or you can step back and realize everything worth doing in life is hard. Marriage is hard, business is hard, your spiritual life is hard, your physical health is hard. So have a different mindset around hard.
We did our business planning recently, and we had an equation in there that I found to be amazing for the market that we're in, right? Is that my results are equal to my choices and the market. And the only aspect of that I get to choose is my choices on what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, so when we find people disillusioned, you just need to know that if I stop and I think about what I'm experiencing, which is really hard when you're disillusioned, think about what you're experiencing. Have you found joy in this industry before? Have you done really hard things before, and now you're faced with the fact that you have to do those hard things again, and you may not want to? Nobody cares. Is that, right? Can I say that? Like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be hard for you. Sorry, like, you're not alone. Like, what do you want to hear from me? It's like, if you're disillusioned and you go start something new, we've talked about this before, you go start something new, you're starting at ground zero. What are you going to do when you get disillusioned in that?
Yeah. Yeah, we see people that jump brokerages a lot, and thinking that like this other brokerage or leaving something that's been working because it's going to be easier for them on the other side, right? Yeah. What's the saying is the grass is greener on the other side. It's actually greener where you water it, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So that leads us to the last piece is that, if you're disillusioned and you start looking for greener pastures, there are sometimes greener pastures, right? If you are a professional post hole digger and you spent your whole life mastering how to dig a post hole, and you find yourself not ever making more than $22 an hour, you actually need to find a greener pasture. Like, that's just the reality of it. But if you find yourself in disillusionment and looking for greener pastures in any, like in your marriage, right, or anything, like the answer is not greener pastures. The answer is something inside of you. It always is, always will be. And so the greener pastures that you see is like the social media, well, that person's doing this. Yeah, you see the outcome. You don't see how much water and fertilizer went into making that pasture green. And by the way, it's green for them. It's not going to be green for you until you do all that hard work.
Yeah, you didn't see the 3 years of buildup it took them to get to 15,000 followers, right? Like, you just assumed that they pushed a couple buttons and posted a picture, and all of a sudden it was 15,000 followers.
Yeah, I have coaching clients like this in different industries too, and I remember all the conversations where they call me like, it's not working, right? And now it's working, and it's blowing their minds. But I remember the years of them saying it's not working. Maybe I should go find a greener pasture. But they're now doing the thing that you want. And this is an internal game. It's not an external game at this point when you're disillusioned.
Yeah. What are some questions we can ask ourselves to help decipher if we're actually in burnout or disillusion?
So I think it's a super good question, because ultimately we want people to be able to have something they can grab a hold of and take action on. And so the first thing is identify, is it burnout or is it depletion, right? And that's going to be, am I doing it? If I go away and really rest and recover from this, am I going to come back and have passion around it? The answer is no, it might be burnout. So identify those two things. If you're disillusioned, the best thing you can do is not make big life decisions and get wise counsel that you're gonna hopefully listen to, right? That's helpful when you're in a state of disillusionment. But ultimately, if you need to break through and you need to get on the other side of stress and you need to get on the other side of depletion, then you really have three levers that you can pull. It's one or all of these three, and breakthrough. I've experienced, just it boils down to these simple things. Number one is you need new relationships in your life. Okay, so if you're disillusioned, if you're depleted, all of those things, and you can't find a way out, you need somebody in your life that is modeling this for you. You need people around you that are encouraging you. It's one of the, in our industry, we kind of tout this thing that's, we are independent contractors. We're independent. Independent also means alone. It also means lonely. And those are horrible things when it comes to breakthrough and becoming the best version of yourself.
We talked, when we've seen the stats recently, that loneliness is deadly to your health, is smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Yeah, that's right. Like it's loneliness is one of the biggest. I think it was actually the single biggest factor in people dying prematurely. So think of your business. Is your business dying prematurely because you're alone? I think it's a good question, right? So relationships, who you're surrounding yourself by. Secondly, is your habits. right? Your habits have created the environment and the mindset and everything that you currently have. And if you're finding yourself not thriving right now, then ask yourself the question, what are my habits? What are my physical health habits? What are my spiritual habits? What are my time management habits? If you look, you will find most likely that there are habits missing or even bad habits that are in the place of where good habits can be. And focusing in on the habit, reading Atomic Habits by James Clear is just a fantastic book, and work through your new set of habits for 2024, right? So new relationships, maybe, new habits, probably, right? And the other one is education. There are times that we get stuck and we remain stuck because we don't know how to get unstuck. A lot of times that can come through a relationship, but educating yourself, if the market shifted and you no longer know how to navigate this new market, you need education from people who are navigating it well. So it's relationships, it's habits, or it's education, or it might be all three.
Nice. All right. So we are going to continue this conversation in sort with our next episode, which is going to be rest, recreation, or retooling.
Yeah, we're going to dive deep into, okay, so what do I do now? So read Jake, I'm experiencing these things. Yes, I need to work on this stuff, but now what? And that's what we're going to get to in our next episode.
All right, guys. Hopefully this episode had an impact on you, empowers you to do more, think differently, and ultimately encourages you going into this season of your life.
Awesome. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.